Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Krystal, what are we taking a look at?
President sent some tweets. We're going to have to talk about that. Also, Kamala Harris this morning out with her version of Medicare for All. So we'll dig into that as well and so much more today on Rising.
Good morning, everybody. Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
So the president is tweeting some things, and somehow Bernie Sanders is getting smeared. Let me explain. The president once again tweeting racist things and insulting America. This time, in a lengthy and multi-day attack on Congressman Elijah Cummings, Trump said that in part that the Baltimore district represented by Cummings was a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess and a very dangerous and filthy place. No human being would want to live there. No word on the actual human beings who do live there. Perhaps if the president hates America so much, he should go back to where he came from. Now, like clockwork, the president's minions of propaganda, of course, fanned out to explain how these tweets were wonderful and patriotic and true, and of course not at all racist. What were we thinking? Nick Mulvaney was on Fox News telling Chris Wallace that the president was fighting back with these tweets and that it has, quote, zero to do with race. But for sheer propaganda value, the Goebbels Prize for gaslighting must go to this column over at foxnews.com. The headline blares, Bernie Sanders blasted Baltimore as third world country and disgrace in past comments. Now, of course, this column was manipulative nonsense from the start. First of all, Sanders' comments came at a press conference in Baltimore after actually walking the streets that burned in the wake of Freddie Gray's death. As you would expect from Bernie Sanders, knowing his rhetoric, knowing his track record, his comments were decrying the systemic and completely avoidable poverty that had left these streets so troubled. Here's what he said. Anyone who took the walk that we took around this neighborhood would not think you're in a wealthy nation. You would think that you were in a third world country. After reporters pressed him on some unrelated topics, Sanders brushed them off, stood strong, and instead chose to continue to spotlight the struggles of that community in which he stood. He said, today, what we're talking about is a community in which half of the people don't have jobs. We're talking about a community in which there are hundreds of buildings that are uninhabitable. Now, as any child would grasp, it is quite a different thing to stand in solidarity with a community than it is to trash it from the sidelines as disgusting and filthy and unfit for human beings, especially when the sidelines you are trashing it from is as your post as president, where if you could actually give a shit, you could do something. Now, second, to slime Bernie Sanders in this way and attempt to put him on the same level as this president is just unspeakably gross. Sanders, of course, led protests against housing segregation. Meanwhile, Trump and his father were accused by the DOJ of systematic discrimination against black rental applicants. Sanders stood in front of bulldozers chained to a black woman to protest disgusting conditions that black children were being subjected to in schools. Trump, of course, used his own money to take out an ad calling for the execution of the 5 wrongly accused black teenagers of the Central Park 5, something, by the way, that he stands by to this day. And as Sanders was building a presidential campaign calling for the most sweeping reforms to the systemic racism of our criminal justice system, the most sweeping reforms that any candidate has ever called for, Trump was using his racist birther conspiracy theory to launch a campaign of communal hate that ultimately, of course, propelled him to the White House. And today, the president has decided that overt racism, stopping just short of actually saying the N-word, is his ticket back to the White House. Sanders, on the other hand, is throwing his lot in with the multiracial working class, with the teachers and the Walmart workers who have largely financed his campaign, because of course it's going to take quite an effort, perhaps even a political revolution, to remove the rats and rodents that have infested this White House. We see this pattern play out time and again, Sagar. President says something indefensible, and rather than actually trying to deal with the words, we grab some, well, Obama said something remotely similar, some other person of basically unimpeachable character is slimed in the process of trying to defend the indefensible.
That's one thing I don't get about this whole thing. I don't know why it's indefensible to attack Baltimore. I don't think it's racist to attack a city that's terribly run and is obviously like full of trash, and a lot of its own residents want it to be cleaned up. That's not a racist thing. People are calling it racist because the majority of the population there might be African American, but that doesn't mean that you're attacking the people who live there.
But look
it's
at
the
the pattern,
chronic
Sagar.
mismanagement of the city. No, I mean, the city is a disaster. Anybody who goes, it's so annoying to me to watch people who go to like the inner harbor be like, oh, Baltimore is an incredible city. And I saw some tweet about all the people on a plane who are landing in Baltimore, like Baltimore, a spectacular place. That's ridiculous. The people in Baltimore want it to be cleaned up.
Nobody is saying that Baltimore is a city without problems. I've spent lots of time there, you know, over the course of my life. But it is a very different thing than that to say this is a vile, disgusting place when you are, by the way, the President of the United States.
I mean, he's talking about West Baltimore, which is true.
Who has more power over what goes on in Baltimore than the President of this country? And you look at the pattern. This is not the first time he's attacked a majority black district. He attacked John Lewis's district as well. Obviously, he just went after the squad. I mean, you can't ignore the willful pattern of going after people of color who
he also
dare
attacked
to
San
stand
Francisco,
against him.
and that doesn't conveniently fit into that pattern because he was attacking Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
The truth is that he attacks anybody who criticizes him. It's not racist. It's just the fact that he literally fights back. I mean, that's what the White House wants. That's what the White House line is. I think it's actually true.
Look over
which
the
is
course
that
of his life,
the intent behind it is not racist. What he's I don't think there's anything wrong, by the way, in calling out Elijah Cummings' district, which encompasses a lot of West Baltimore. There are a lot of problems with West Baltimore, but you're right. If he actually cared a lot more than to use it as a political cudgel, him and his administration should be doing much more to revitalize American cities. And I will stand on that criticism all day long. I think it's totally right, which is that in much part, these attacks are in bad faith, and the administration isn't doing very much about it. But I think the attack itself is not wrong.
I disagree.